We are live.
The Hunt for Success podcast. Cody Steinman, Ryan McCracken. We're here today with Eric Post.
Number 22.
22. 4th of July special. Happy 4th of July. Last year, really special episode with Caldwell, Ryan Caldwell,
Yep.
with Got Your Six Fishing. So we're excited to continue the tradition again this year. The Hunt for Success podcast.com. The Hunt for Success podcast on Instagram and Facebook
And YouTube.
and YouTube. Eric, how you doing?
I'm right. I'm so fired up, you guys. This is good. I like this.
So normally I don't have any topics, or I don't think too much about what we're going to talk about because I just like organic conversation. Right?
Okay.
But I have a couple things that I've been listening to and thinking about. I kind of want to work out on the show, if you're okay. And based off of your presence online and your videos, I think you and I kind of think a lot alike, at least from what I can tell.
Scary. There's two of us.
So Charles Krauthammer, are you familiar with him?
Yeah.
He was a journalist, just
Yeah.
passed away this
Yeah.
last week.
Yeah.
Unbelievable documentary called In His Own Words.
Okay.
Really sad, but very inspiring because he was such a private individual, never talked about his life, to how he got paralyzed and going through school and everything. So it was really neat to get to know a little bit more about him through his documentary. But in his last announcement before he passed, this last line really kind of hit me. So I'm just going to read it. I leave this life with no regrets. It was a wonderful life, full and complete with the great loves and great endeavors that make it worth living. I am sad to leave, but I leave with the knowledge that I lived a life that I intended.
Mm-hmm.
And it got me thinking, you know, life goes by so quick, both personal and business. And I look back at my career. I've been doing mortgages for 14 years, and it seems like just yesterday I started. And I started to question, am I living a life in reaction, or am I being proactive and truly intending what I want to do? And I think it's a mixture of both for me, but it's something I haven't thought about in a long time. Am I being intentional with my life? So I thought that was a really inspiring goodbye from a great man.
I love it. I have a weird take on that, actually, because I've always had that, you know, the saying in my head about life is short and you live at full throttle and all those things. Part of the challenge that I actually started when I actually sat down and dissected it, because sometimes, you know, you sit down and have reflective on the way you think about things, and sometimes you pick up a belief along the way, but not intentionally. It was given to you by the media, it was given to you by your parents or whatever. So the belief that life is short was given to me. And I started thinking, I was like, well, damn, that's kind of like a state of scarcity. Like, life is short, and I don't like to live with a state of scarcity. So I started thinking that life's the longest thing I will ever do on this planet. Like, it's literally the longest thing, depending on your religious beliefs, what happens after this. But here, at least, on this earth, it's the longest thing we do. So it's actually chilled me out a little bit to say, no, I have time to make a mistake. I have time to try something new.
You did a video on that.
Yeah,
I mentioned it.
Yeah.
And it's true. It truly changed the way I view things, because generally I was on that, like, oh my God, I don't want to have any regrets, and that's painful. And I still have a piece of that with me, but at the same time, if I'm like, you know what, it's the longest thing, so I can afford to not be paralyzed by fear to try something new, because if I try and I don't like it, I've got time to do something else. I got time to make the next decision.
But do you think it's easier to not have regrets if you have the opportunity to regret over something you did intentionally? Like if you intend to do a business venture,
that's a great
and you
point.
fail, it's
Yeah.
harder to regret it than if you fail when you weren't even trying to do something.
I love that word intentionality, because that's something a lot of people lack. You know, truly that reactionary state is general. Like, we just start getting busy with kids. You have a job, you have a business, and you start reacting to everybody else's. I mean, email is the perfect example of being a reactionary. Your email is nothing more to your inbox of everybody else's agenda just displayed for you, right? That's the way we live. And so, but being intentional, and that's why that's a pretty neat quote. Just at the end, I live the life that I intended, is very rare. That is very rare. And that's a man that has he has my respect by just stating that. Yeah.
And I've never seen someone pass away in the public eye that went away with so much peace.
And grace.
That he was, his journey was over, and he didn't have any regrets. He lived the life. And this was somebody that, while he was going to, I think it was Oxford Medical School, he hit his head at the bottom of the swimming pool and instantly paralyzed the rest of his life.
I've heard about him, yeah.
And you wouldn't even know it until, you dig a little deeper. When you see him on TV, you can't really tell he's in a wheelchair. But
yeah. There's that other professor that gave that amazing speech when he was dying of cancer. I can't remember his name right now, but it's the speech, that he gave to his class. And it's a few years ago now, but that one has an impact on me too, about going out gracefully and going out with making a difference, and not making it about him.
So then I started thinking, okay, well, how do you live in life intentionally? It's really easy to say, right? And I've been listening to, Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
Click on this.
He's coming to Portland, I heard.
Is he really?
Yeah.
I was just wondering, because he's on tour with his book, right? The 12 Rules for Life.
Yeah, I just saw a flash of an ad, but I believe he's coming to Portland.
I would love to go see him.
Yeah, me too.
He's brave coming to Portland because he's got a lot of...
It is, that's for sure.
I don't know why people protest him at these universities, but for some reason, he's got a lot of...
well, we can talk about that if you want.
We will, for sure. And I want to get into your background a little bit, but I just want to process some of these thoughts with you for a second.
Sure, yeah.
So I'm in the middle of reading his book. And he's got his 12 rules. Each chapter is one of the rules.
I haven't read it yet, but I've seen this list. Yeah,
so I just kind of
love it.
Want to get. I think these are. It's interesting because you read this list and you think it means something, and then he goes into his philosophy behind what it means, and it means something completely different. But I think these are great questions to ask. So we won't hit all these, but stand up straight with your shoulders back. Treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping.
Okay, wait a minute. Let's process that one for a second. Treat yourself like somebody you're responsible for helping. All right. I guess since I haven't read his book, is he trying to say that we are our own worst enemy? Essentially, is that the premise behind that?
I think it has a lot to do with that and the hierarchy of success and of our society, and
accountability.
Yeah, accountability, but more.
That's a painful word.
I think it's more about health, right?
Okay.
Is that take care of yourself first.
All right. Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yes, I'm a huge fan of that belief.
And treat yourself like somebody that you are helping. And I think that's easier to think about it because I'm surrounded with people that are athletes that work out, that do CrossFit and all this crazy shit. And I don't do any of that. But as I'm getting older, I'm starting to think, man, I got to, my family, you got to take care of yourself. We have stressful jobs.
Right.
So if I really want my daughter to be healthy and take care of her, then I should be treating myself the same way.
Yeah. There you go. Nailed it.
So I just finished this chapter. Make friends with people who want the best for you.
Yes. And I'm not smarter than Jordan Peterson, but I would add something to that says also that you want the best for, because it's got to be two-way.
Reciprocal.
So it's got to be the reciprocity is something that keeps the circle going around, right? You can't have giving going one way continually.
I think you kind of nail his point there because
perfect. See, you're smarter than me.
I look at it.
He's got a book. I don't.
Not yet.
Yeah, I got. Yeah.
When I look at that, I always have the saying, your personality's the sum total of the 5 people you surround yourself. You spend the most time with, right? So you got to be very selective about those people. But when in the book he talks about the 80-20 rule.
Okay.
Right, and you want to surround yourself with the 20%. Right, because those are the people that are going to help you be successful. Like people like Roger, who owns this museum, lets us do the podcast here. Wants nothing but to see me do well.
Right.
He has no other agenda.
Right.
And so be surrounded by those people, because if you want to be part of that 20% that's producing the 80, and Jordan Peterson breaks it out with square roots and that it's even less than 20%.
Of course he does, yeah.
Especially as it gets more and more people. I think by the time you get to a company with 10,000 employees, only 100 contribute 50%. But you want to be surrounded by those people because success creates success. And once you start having little successes, then you're going to have opportunities for more success. But I thought it was a cool way of looking at something that we all know, right? You want to be surrounded by the right people, but...
It's funny that it's got to lead into, because I've read the book, but it's got to lead to the next one. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to somebody else who is today. And then, come on, that's a genius quote. I'm gonna steal that one.
I am too.
That's a good one. Number 5, do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them.
He almost didn't put that in the book because he thought it would get negative.
I actually hated it at first glance, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I haven't gotten to that chapter yet.
That's interesting. I got to read that because I mean I'm a father. You've got kids. You got kids. I don't know, man. I gotta see what he says about that because that statement just absolutely kills me the wrong way. And here's the reason why. It's not because I disagree with that. It's just because who am I to? I hate parents that critique other parents because they don't know, they're not walking in their shoes. My personal philosophy with my daughter, especially because she just turned 13, and on Father's Day, actually, she just wrote me this in her card, and so I can see that she's starting to get it. But I've actually always told her that I'm never going to tell her what to do or what to think. I'm always going to teach her how to think critically and how to think for her own, how to make her own decisions, and she actually is starting to understand the power of that. So instead of me teaching her, this is how you think about the certain situation, this is how you think about when somebody talks to you like this, this is what you think. I teach her how to process it, how to think critically. And I'm not saying that's better than anybody else's philosophy, but for her, it's really made a lot of sense. And I can actually see the product that it's producing, not my daughter's product, but I could see how she's so well adjusted and so calm in her own skin, even in these years of middle school and girls doing different things. I can see how she's able to not just take what I say and try and implement it or take what her teacher says, but we're really having these amazing conversations about her understanding when a teacher's giving her a fact versus an opinion and how to decide between the two, what's a fact and what's an opinion, and not allow anybody else to give her their beliefs without her knowing intentionally, like we're talking about earlier, like the intentionality of picking up those beliefs. And in school, it's tough. You got friends, you have influences and principles in schools and all these things. And so
when she started kind of grasping that, was she humble about it? Or was she in class going, excuse me?
No, 100% humility. Yeah. No, humility for me is like this golden mood, this emotion that when used properly is super powerful. And so she's very
Isn't that really what we're missing with this tribal mentality and people being able to think for themselves to a point, but then verbally assaulting people with their opinions? Why can't you, people like your daughter who are learning how to do that in a humble way, where they can listen to someone's opinion, recognize its opinion, process it, and then not attack them for it. Like, let's have a conversation. Right?
Well, with her, I had this conversation with her. I might have put it online. I can't remember, but I've since being online and more visible and having different conversations with different people, I've come an observation I've been able to make, a gift, I guess, I've been given by seeing so like tens upon tens of thousands of people either arguing or placing opinion or whatever. The reason my observation is most people are intertwining their opinion with their identity. And when they do that, they're unable to have a conversation without getting offended. Because if I attack their opinion or bring up a point about their opinion, it's an attack on their identity. So of course emotions go high, intellect goes low, every time. So I've been trying to find a way where I can always take my opinion and bring it out of me and look at it like it's a different part of me, my opinion, so I can see the bottom, the side, the left, the top, the bottom, and I can evaluate it, and I can talk about it out here, and I can look at it objectively. And if somebody, because I'm more interested in the truth than being right, like always. So if somebody brings up a better truth or more right than me, I can go, it's not an attack on me, it's an attack on this opinion I have. And I've seen a lot of good people have bad opinions, like truly. And that's just the way it is.
And I think the person that mastered that without ever saying they mastered it was Charles Krauthammer.
Oh, probably,
Because he was so good at debating people on the news or in his journalism without attacking them and being very persuasive on his opinion and understanding how to relay what he's thinking and his opinion is so that this person's going to hear what he's saying.
Yeah.
And that document, I'm going to bring it up a bunch during this podcast.
I love it.
In his own words, he really talks about that. And I really wish he would have been more vocal about that when he was alive, because these are all lessons that we could have been learning from one of the greats while he was alive. But yeah, identity politics are crazy right now, especially with Jordan Peterson, people protesting him, a professor. This one I'm really bad at, but it is so accurate. Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. So if you have that tribal mentality, or you see something in the media or on the news that really pisses you off, or instead of jumping to your opinion, Go clean your house first.
Oh, come on.
right?
I wish. I wish. And that's why I so laugh when if we're going to talk politics for a second, if you have the left and the right, when any of them claim a moral high ground on any one level, I'm like, come on. Look to your left and your right for a second. There's just so much that they could pick on you. So why pick on some?
It's so obvious.
It's so brutal.
It's so obvious. Like this latest thing with the kids being separated from their parents. It's so obvious that these politicians are hijacking scenarios, catering to what their agenda is on both sides.
And I'll even label it
And
another
blatant.
word. I think it's gross. I use the word gross. Yeah, it's because I can't think of something that's more derogatory than gross. And it's because it's so manipulative, and and I don't think every politician's bad, and that's not my point. My point is the system is geared that way. And I've been approached some to run for politics and whatnot. And I've thought about a few. I'm never going to do it, but now.
Never say never.
But I'm going to say never. Is this thing live? Am I being called right now? Okay, never. Here we go. But I have talked to some people that are running or have ran and things like that, and looked at the ads, and I've even called a couple and say, hey, this ad seems interesting. Like, why'd you choose this tactic? And said, well, that's what you do before the primary. That's what you do. I'm like,
that's
well,
what
why?
the advisors say.
Why? Like, why does it have to be that way? Why can't you have a policy that stands alone on itself instead of picking apart somebody else's policy? I don't, and they're like, well, we gotta pander to the lowest common denominator. I'm like, okay, that's who I don't want voting. First of all, like, why? It's great they can vote, but why would you set all of your messaging for them? Why wouldn't you give substance for the rest of the population? They're craving for something. I'm not just saying positive to be positive, but something real and tangible. And the whole, like even Obama's slogan about change, like not all change is good. We've seen people's health change for the worst. We've seen people's financial situations change for the worst. So change isn't what I ever vote for, or I don't think we should vote for. I think we should always look for progress, and progress is intentional. Change is inevitable. Like change is going to happen at any level, but it doesn't mean it's for the better. Mm-hmm. So truly, like if somebody had the guts to dismiss. And whether Trump did it or not, it doesn't matter. That's not, but dismiss the system, the way the system is currently set up, and had any success at all, it would be inspiring to me for sure. I would get inspired by somebody who had the balls to do that.
Well, when Trump is done in his administration, it's going to be free game. I really think
it's free game now.
I mean, he's exposing a lot of exactly what you're talking about with politicians. But it's exciting time. So I really like that. I really like the clean your house first before you criticize.
Sorry, I took us on our first tangent.
No, look at. I think politics are great. When it relates to that,
it's fascinating.
It's like before you criticize everybody else. And so I actually practiced this a couple weeks ago. I think Ryan noticed that I cleaned my office. So we moved into a new building.
Good for you.
And I had boxes and Rubbermaids, and it was a disaster. Coffee cups and everything. And so. I walked in and going, okay, this week I'm going to be proactive instead of reactive. Mm-hmm. And I read that quote. I'm like, I'm just going to stop. I'm going to clean my office and organize it as much as I could. Down to my whiteboard, we have our list of guests on the whiteboard. I made it look cleaner.
I saw a picture when you sent it to me.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. But I think what you felt is hypocrisy. And hypocrisy for me is another gross thing. Like hypocrisy is rampant in any place. So sometimes I get asked to speak publicly for certain things. And I turn down speaking gigs 100% if the topic I'm being asked to, if I don't feel completely in line with it, or if I'm not currently practicing it or believe in it, because you can't stand on stage or
How long have you been running in that circuit? How long have you been speaking?
I don't run in a circuit. I just take calls sometimes and go do gigs. Like I don't promote or anything like that.
Have you met a lot of the people that are on that circuit of speakers?
Yeah. I'll meet some on stage, sure. Or behind the scenes or whatever. Yeah, or at the bar right afterwards or something.
So, but this really first started with and I don't want to take us completely off topic, but this first started with your American flag video for the most part, right?
No, I was doing just either industry type gigs, real estate type gigs. I get asked to go speak for leadership to like the state Parks and Rec district, or things like that. I was doing some things like that, fitness for like moms groups, something, just whatever. I enjoy sharing ideas. I enjoy being around groups. So I was doing some things like that, and a lot of real estate related sort of thing, just because that's what I was doing. it's expanded just a little bit, just with exposure, kind of on accident. So I'll do some other things.
Are you enjoying that part of it though? Breaking out of the industry and people still looking for you to speak and looking for your opinion on things that are.
As long as I'm in line with it, like as long as my house is in order, yeah, that's just it's one of those things. I got a call the other day to do something. I was like, I'm not going to do it. I just can't. It's not from a state. I'm not trying to come off as snooty. It's just so important to me that I'm in line with what I'm talking about, because there is so much just hot air in the speaking industry, especially. You know, they stand on stage and talk about all these things they're never doing on their own, and I'm like, come on, dude. You know, I'll talk to them afterwards, and they're talking about family values and stuff like that, and they're picking up a chick at the bar or whatever. You know, it's so gross to me.
So why is having that integrity so important, though? Isn't it easy to? Have you ever felt the temptation to kind of lose your integrity a little bit?
Undoubtedly, I'm a human being. There's a quote actually that I started living by when I heard it a few years ago, and it's I'm a man entirely made up of flaws, but stitched together with good intentions. Like that quote, it's not. I don't know who said it, but that really sticks to me because I'm gonna make mistakes. We all make mistakes, but the intentionality, bringing back to that word, is everything. So as long as people understand your intentions, if you say something off, instead of them taking it the wrong way, they might say, "Hey, did you mean this by that?" You know, and because you have the credit, you've made enough deposits in their bank of having the right intentions of doing the right thing, that when you do screw up, they at least pause for a minute before they accuse you of something. Hopefully, right? Yeah. A reasonable person that you want in your life, right? There's 5 people or whatever you surround yourself with. But back to the alignment, like the integrity, because honestly, it's just way more simple. Right, and the phrase about you don't have to have a long-term memory if you're telling the truth sits well with me, and it just the simplicity of saying the right things because it's the right thing to say because it's the truth. It's just more simple.
All right, let me ask you another question.
Sure.
Is that easier to do because you've been successful in business?
That's a fair question. No, it's sometimes harder. Because there's more complications. Like the more relationships you have, the more money you have, the more business you have, the more employees, the more responsibility, the bigger the web that you've weaved, the longer you live, right? You just know more things. There's more at stake.
But if you were maybe at a different point in your career where you had to achieve a lot of financial success, do you think it's easier to sacrifice your integrity a little bit to get the gig?
No, because I always hated the phrase "fake it till you make it" as an example. Like that phrase never sat with me. I was like, why would you have to fake it till you make it? You don't make it by faking it. Is my thought. So I don't, I just don't believe in that. I'm not saying it's wrong. I just personally don't align myself with that thought. Like fake it till you make it. So, there you go. Perfect. Who said that? See, that another smart guy, I'm sure.
Augustin Burroughs.
Don't even know who said it, but I love it.
I myself am made entirely of flaws stitched together with good intentions.
I almost had it. Perfect. That's
pretty good.
So if you ever heard this podcast, thank you for that. It's changed my life. I appreciate that. I love quotes, by the way, because quotes for me, and I was just talking about this the other day, how they said, you always have a quote for everything. I'm like, well, because quotes take a very, very tough topic, a very big concept sometime, and just break it down to just very, very digestible, simple sentence or two.
Absolutely.
And so I look for people who have these quotes that help me guide myself, right, that make sense of things.
In our industry, the real estate mortgage industry, Jeff Strode, I think you know Jeff, right?
I know Jeff well.
Yeah,
I was partners with him for a bit.
He's a quote guy, but
is he?
The mortgage industry has obviously gone through some big hurdles over the last 20 years. But he always would say that the only constant is change. Mm-hmm. And that quote always stuck with me. Mm-hmm. So when the shit hits the fan, a lot less anxiety, a lot more adapt to the change just by having that quote.
Right.
The only constant is change. It's going to happen.
Be cool.
It's going to happen again. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's hammer through a couple more
let's do this.
of these.
I like this list.
Pursue it as meaningful. I think we just kind of covered that.
We did, yeah. Tell the truth. We actually
and the guts it took, and we talked about this a little bit before we came on, the guts it took to do some of your videos on the American flag and on the protesters, at the cemetery. To do that with almost no fear of polarizing yourself. Mm-hmm. Pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. The expedient part doesn't really play there, but being able to do that without the fear, right? And that's something I've always struggled with, is fear of polarization.
We hit that a little bit before we sat down, right? So I don't know. I truly, truly believe that in business or small business, especially. Now I just messed with your camera because I'm fidgeting. Sorry. Is it seeing?
No, you're good.
Seeing?
You're good.
Should I just shake it some more?
Yeah.
We'll just blame it on Ryan.
That's my fault, guys. I truly, in any small business, because there have been times actually when business owners have reached out to me like, hey, how do you have an opinion with owning a small business? How does it affect you? And all these things. And it took me a long time to think why they're asking me, because truly how competitive business is. It is so competitive. There's so many people doing the same damn thing. Almost everything in our world now is a commodity. So if that's the truth, if almost everything we do, even a service business like mortgage, is a commodity on some level, so that is so not compelling, and everybody is milquetoast, and all people out there is, when I say all people, the consumers out there want to actually know and feel who they're working with. It's no longer about know, liking, do people that do business with you know, like, and trust you? That was the old saying. Well, they'll do business. No, how many people have you know, liked, and trust, but you went with somebody else? That's not enough anymore. And as a matter of fact, I think the relationship forms as a result of the value that's given as a business, not first.
So, to back up just a little bit.
Yeah.
So you own Better Homes and Garden Real Estate, or part owner? Or?
I'm the founder.
Founder.
Yep.
And you're working on a restaurant project now.
Yeah, we got a bunch of things in the fire right now.
So you got a bunch of things in the fire.
Yeah.
How about this? Former Marine.
Marine, and we're gonna dive into that deep.
Sure. Okay.
What were we just talking about?
You were asking me something about no, like, and trust, polarization.
Oh yeah. So one hot topic now that I think that is being missed is, for the first time in our country's history, we have 5 different generations working together and doing business at the same time.
Yeah, fascinating, right?
And so you talk about being able to relate to your clients. Have you thought, has that been part of your thought process with all your business ventures?
Yeah, because what pierces through vanilla, milk toast, all the noise, it's, on average right now, the last ad I saw, we're hit up for business 3,000 to 5,000 times every day. Billboards, pop-up ads, so on and so forth, right? So when that's truly just inundating the consumer, you and me being one of them, the only way you actually pierce through is when a message speaks directly to you. And so you can only pick that up when it's congruent with the person saying those words. So that's why I think indifference for a small business is deadly. Like, I think you should, like I said earlier, that everybody should get you, but that doesn't mean everyone likes you. They all get you, and they either hate you or they love you. And that is perfect, because then you've automatically disqualified a bunch of people that might bring legal troubles later, that you don't gel with, like that disqualification, and it makes your business that much easier. So when somebody's sitting in front of you, you've put these layers of filters in place that they've come to you through those filters. So you're likely to do business with in the beginning. So, and those are the people that are your people, that you're their people. And so with 7+ billion people on the earth, you don't want to serve all them anyways.
Yeah.
And so that's why I've never been scared of it.
So do you feel that some companies are missing the boat because the millennials are the hot topic? So they're trying to engage everybody through millennial
classes. They're trying to outsmart themselves. Listen, what millennial isn't a human being first? Right? We get so up into putting people in these categories. And what human being on earth, I don't care if they're a baby boomer or Gen X, Gen Y, millennial, what person doesn't want the company to care more about their values and their needs than the company's needs? All of them, right? So if you just start with that basic, simple thing, like, why do we have to outsmart ourselves and think, well, millennials are so special? Well, maybe the way you reach them is, but not the message, not the way you care for them, not the way you deliver the service. So, people make a lot of money talking about how you serve the millennial customer. I'd sit down in front of any millennial and challenge them, like, hey, give me the top 10 things that you really want out of the customer or product or service that you buy from the company you buy from, and match that with the baby boomers list, and I guarantee they'll be pretty damn close.
Ryan's itching.
No, I'm totally fine. It's good stuff.
Am I hitting something?
Yeah,
wrong?
no, everything's good.
No, I thought you had something that you wanted to input there, but I think you're absolutely right.
I struck a nerve.
No, not at all.
I'm trying not to interrupt Ryan so much. I thought you had something to say.
No, you're good.
You're good. Here we go. I love this.
And it's funny because the millennial thing's been hot for a couple of years.
Yeah, it's great. And come on now. They're the largest. There's so much buying power. So we should be paying attention.
But I think you nailed it with the relationship piece and being real. Because now you're starting to see studies that people have been marketing towards millennials for a couple of years now.
Sure.
You're starting to see the studies come out that disprove a lot of those marketing tactics. Where, yes, they want to be text, they want quick, they don't want to be bothered until they reach a certain point in that sales process, the sales cycle, to when they want to know the person they're talking to, sit down and get that advice. And I think that a lot of companies miss that.
Yeah, I just believe in simplicity, because what was the saying, like complexity is the enemy of execution, and so many businesses are thinking of all these strategies to reach the millennial, and I mean, underneath it all, just human beings have certain basic human needs, and if you're truly meeting those, if you actually care about those basic human needs, you're going to hit them in the right place at the right time if they're 12 years old or 102, you know. And so I think that level is where I try and keep things very, very simple that way. So,
and without getting too mushy, I think there's something really cool about that, about being able to work with 5 different generations and market to 5 different generations at the same time. From what I'm understanding you say is do it all the same instead of having to divide it up. And then it brings everybody kind of together.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, let's hit a couple more of these, and then I want to hear about the Marines. Tell the truth, or at least don't lie.
I can't wait to read that one. Yeah.
Assume that the person you are listening to might know something you don't.
I like that. I have this quote another quote, guys. Okay, I don't mean to get boring with quotes, but
no.
It's another kind of mantra I've used in general. But that's I argue like I'm right and I listen like I'm wrong. You know, I speak and talk.
Say that again. I think that was really good.
I argue like I'm right? So, you know, when you have an opinion, you form an opinion, hopefully it's based on some sort of education or experience or research or something where that's how you formed it. It wasn't given to you. You didn't read it on a meme or something like that. And so you need to state that in a confident way, whether you call it argument or whatever, but stating your opinion or you give your belief in such a way, but then you listen as if you're wrong. You listen with that humility of like, okay, since my opinion is out here, I can evaluate this and look at this different way. If it is wrong, if I've thought about this the wrong way, or I missed a piece of information, or I didn't look at the other side in such a right way, that's cool. You know, and listen like I'm wrong.
Do you think that as a society we're losing the art of a conversation?
I think forever. I just thought about this the other day. I don't know why I took this thought process, but I was even like religion has been a practice of trying to convince somebody else of believing the way you believed. Most, like even Christianity, they were trying to convert, right? They would go to these islands and they try and convert, spread their message, right? So I think people have always been that way. They've always tried to spread their message, their belief, whatever it happens to be, religion, politics, dieting, whatever. I'm a keto guy, so I'm not really, but, you know, like whatever you believe. I'm a CrossFitter, I'm a vegan, you know, whatever it is.
The vegan's the hot one.
Yeah, it's like, and they want to almost spread the gospel of whatever they believe amongst everyone. So I think that's just an innate thing. I don't think it's anything new. I think we just have a hotter megaphone now. We just have social media, so we have a bigger platform to do the same thing that we've always done. So the feeling that we all get is that everybody's trying to convince everybody else. We've always been doing it. You know, people have always been selling Tupperware or whatever, it's just trying to spread that gospel of what you believe. We just happen to have a bigger megaphone. So I don't think it's anything new at all. It's just amplified.
I think a big part of my life, especially over the last 5 or 10 years, is slowing down a little bit, looking at the people you actually know.
I have a hard time with that, by the way.
It's okay. But taking the time to actually get to know the people you know.
Yeah.
One of the questions we get asked a lot about the podcast is, well, how do you find all your guests? Mm-hmm. And I love this answer is, well, if you just slow down, and you'll realize that you know some pretty badass people.
You do. Yeah, that's true.
And this podcast has helped me with having conversations and actually being able to turn my brain off for 30 seconds while I listen to what the other person is saying. Yeah. And you can really pull a lot out of people. And I think that's kind of what he means here is those people are assets. Mm-hmm. You coming on this podcast is an asset to us and everyone listening, just to get someone else's opinion. If we could just slow down and listen, we might be able to pull something out of there that could be a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely.
In whatever we're trying to do in personal life or business.
That's awesome.
Be precise in your speech. I'm horrible at that.
You know what's funny about that? I actually do a drill sometimes. I do some consulting in companies, and one of the things I've done at times is I've gone in, and actually I'm doing this right now in the mortgage company. I did that like in the second meeting I think I had with them. And I asked each person in the room, and there was 2 different groups, and so I did it 2 different times back to back. And I said, the instructions are very specific. Write down the number 1 most important thing in your business right now. Like literally just write that down. And they wrote it down. I said, all right, crumple it up. throw it in the middle of the table here or the room or whatever, and let me read a couple. And when I read them, they're it's like, hey, I want to get more new clients. Hey, I want to improve my marketing. Hey, I want to improve my social media. Whatever it happens to be. But this one, it says be precise in your speech, because specificity takes guts. And real leaders understand the power of being specific. And, in your speech, in your business planning, in your parenting, having the guts to be precise and very specific. So instead of saying, I want to improve my social media, it's I want to post 4 times a day to increase my metrics by whatever, like that kind of specific. And when I ask the question, what's the number one most important thing? The non-specific answers should be very scary. Because if it's truly the number one most important thing, then you better know whatever metrics it has to be. You better be specific.
What are some examples of the generic answers you'd get?
Well, truly, it's I want more leads, or in this case, I want to take more apps, right? It's like, cool, I get that. How many more apps, by what time, what kind of apps? Do you want to do VA? Do you want to do refinances? Do you want to do purchase? Like, whatever it happens to be. But being very, very specific is the only way you can actually put a plan in place that'll actually help the thing that you're talking about as the number one most important thing come alive, right?
Yeah.
So that's why this one just hit me right. Be precise in your speech. It's in your speech. It's in your planning. It's in your activities. CrossFit, right? Mm-hmm. It's very precise with the like what's prescribed for the day is very precise. It's because it works, right? It's trying to achieve a certain goal. They say, come in and you go ahead and do some bench presses over here. Go ahead and do some wall squats over here. That's not going to do anybody any favors. No, you do this many times with this much weight at this much interval with this much break, and it's going to produce a result.
And you think that's also important when you're communicating with, especially in the business world, being very specific instead of, hey, I want you to go do this task, but being very specific in how you want it done. Because I feel I fail there a lot.
It is. Communication is another one of those things that, like, what's another quote? I'm going to bust out another quote, but the biggest problem with communication is the misunderstanding that actually happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, another drill I do sometimes in these workshops is just ask us. I have actually a pretty cool communication drill that we do, but I ask a question. What percentage of communication is you guys are doing a deal or whatever? You guys are negotiating. What percentage of communication is your responsibility and your responsibility? Of course, the number. I'm 50% responsible. I'm 50% responsible. And it's wrong. The right answer is you're 100% responsible and you're 100% responsible. So if things aren't happening, then instead of saying, well, he's not understanding, you need to say, gosh, no, I didn't ask the right question to help him given the environment for self-discovery so he knew what he was trying to ask me, right? Or I didn't understand what he was saying, and therefore I didn't process the right thing to ask the right. So taking on 100% responsibility, like Jocko's thing with ultimate responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
That guy, love it. But that intense feeling that I'm going to own whatever it is with communication, this example, is super powerful. So since we're talking about communication, I thought that was...
Yeah, what a great interpretation of that. I never thought about communication in that way, being specific and intentional in your communication.
Yeah,
100%. And then blaming yourself, falling on 100%, your sword, right?
100%.
Right, and in our industry, blame game happens all the time.
Yeah, and actually, that's I've talked to a lot of title companies and other agents, as a matter of fact, because it seems to be like, oh, it didn't happen because title didn't do so and so, or lenders didn't do so and so.
It's always a finger pointing game.
Come on, really?
Yeah.
Oh, when was the last time you called and checked on that thing? Well, it was last week. Don't you think maybe if you called the day before, it would have not happened that way? Well, yes. Okay, then how can we point But anyway, now I'm preaching. I'm soapbox down.
No,
aside,
Cody and I have we've done a bunch of, since we read Jocko's book, like a year and a half ago now, if not more, 2 years ago. Whenever something goes wrong, that's the first thing that he'll look at me or I'll look at him and I'll go,
ultimate accountability.
Dude, take a step back.
Yeah.
What did we do wrong to not help this situation? And how can we change now?
That's awesome.
How can we get better?
Well, and when you hear, that's why I love listening to podcasts that are completely outside of my industry and then pull things that I could use. Because Ryan brings up a really good point, because the example in the book that he's talking about is where there was a friendly fire scenario.
Yeah.
And badly.
Yeah.
And instead of being able to place blame, Jocko owned it.
That's when he was the leader.
Yeah,
right?
He was the commander.
I've seen him talk. He gave a TED talk on that.
Yeah.
I mean, what a powerful thing.
Yeah.
And this is it. Who screwed up our closing? This was a friendly fire.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't understand these last two. They're not even funny. I can't wait to get this part of the book because the guy's so smart. But don't bother children while they're skateboarding. Okay. I'm sure he's got some very scientific thing
some sort of analogy.
And then pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. I don't know what that means either.
You'll find out. You'll get there.
So, talk to me about the Marines.
Sure.
Why you chose the Marines, or the Marines chose you.
Okay.
And then kind of what that experience was like, and then how that's made you, because it's obvious when you meet a Marine that they're a Marine most of the time. So,
or at least military for
military.
Yeah, sure.
Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing was, it was actually funny. I'd always thought that maybe the military might be a good thing for me because the idea of service is certainly integrated me for some reason, and then the idea of precision really intrigues me. The idea of finding out who you really are through adversity really intrigues me. So it was actually junior year. Funny story. I was actually walking down the halls of my high school. And I was with a couple of buddies, and we're talking about what we're going to do after we graduate. And school came pretty easy for me. I was a good student, and they were either taking a scholarship or putting in applications to these colleges. And they said, "What do you do?" I said, "I don't know, but what I want to do after high school, I want it to be really hard. I feel like, and school wasn't really hard for me. I don't know if college is the right thing." And I shit you not, we walked around the corner going to lunch, and it was recruiting day. So all of the recruiters from every branch had a little table right out in front of the cafeteria. So I literally just walked up and started making appointments to go talk to them. And at the time, I wanted to fly, and so I went. And I was Navy, Air Force, Marines. I can't remember if I talked to the Army or not, but it's mostly helicopters. But anyways, I did a nice interview, and I remember sitting down in front of the Marine Corps recruiter, and we're sitting across the table, and I was kind of trying to figure out what the best path for me. And as a 17-year-old kid, you don't really know, but you're trying to do your best, right? And I'm sitting there, and he goes, "You play sports, right?" And I go, "Yeah, I play sports." And he goes, "You play JV or varsity?" I go, "I play varsity." And he goes, "We're the varsity of the military."
Oh, God.
And I was like, "You son of a bitch." Like, I know he's used that line before, right? But it got me. I was like, you know what? You are the varsity of the military. So let's frickin' do this, right? So that's pretty much, and I had a plan of attack. I was trying to do it as best I could. But that's ultimately why I chose the Marine. I physically wanted what I thought was going to be the hardest thing, for me at the time.
So did you have family that was in the military?
No. Well, my grandfather was, but it wasn't part of my life. Like, that wasn't part, like, he was my grandfather, but not as a Navy veteran, right? I just kind of knew he had a CB tattoo on his arm, but I didn't, it wasn't an influence.
You weren't going down the family tradition.
No, nothing with that. No, not at all. In fact, I didn't even tell my mom, my stepdad at the time I was joining. So I guess we got a little bit of time. So I was actually in basketball practice. The recruiter came to pick me up to take me to MEPS, the Military Processing Center, to after practice to go get processed, right? And I hadn't told anybody. So I go down there, and it's now 10 o'clock at night, and we hadn't finished. Oh. And so like, "Hey, well, we'll just put you up in a hotel tonight. You can finish up in the morning." I'm like, "Cool." I'm like, "Can I use the phone?" So I call my mom, like, "Hey, just so you know, I'm signing up for the Marine Corps. I won't be home tonight. I'm going to stay in a hotel. They'll bring me home in the morning, before school and stuff like that." And she's like, "What?" I'm like, "Don't worry. I got it all figured out." But as a parent now, what a shitty thing to do as a child. But at the time, it's stuff going on in my life where that made sense at the time, honestly. But it was.
And was your mom supportive, or was she like?
She didn't have a choice.
When was that?
Yes, of course. It was my junior year.
What year was that?
1992, 91, 92.
Okay, so it's coming out of the first Gulf War.
Yeah, absolutely.
And right before Kosovo. Mm-hmm. So that
was so my service. So I'm not a combat veteran, right? I don't want to pretend to be anything that I'm not. I did my thing. I gave it as much as I knew how. I think I did well. I served well, but I'm not a combat veteran or anything like that.
Well, the reason I ask is because when I graduated, it was right when Kosovo was starting.
Okay.
And I had thought about the military a little bit. Mm-hmm. My dad's a veteran. And my mom was terrified of something happening and me going off to Kosovo.
Sure.
So I ended up going to college for computers instead. Yeah. So I was just curious.
Like, better choice.
When I wonder what the statistics are with the recruiters when there is a conflict that has a good chance of.
It'd be interesting to have them break that down geographically, by the way, small town versus big town, middle of the country versus coast. That kind of stuff.
And I think it goes both ways because they're after the whole 9/11 thing.
Absolutely.
A lot of people came out and they
I
wanted
was
to
going to
serve.
rejoin then.
They wanted to serve, and then I think the flip side, there's a lot of people that come out during wartime and they're like, I don't want any part of that.
Well, as an example, so I was out by 2001, and I was actually in Seattle. I started a new job. I was up in Seattle when on 9/11, and I saw it that morning before I went into work, and I called my wife from the hotel, and I said, turn on the TV, and she turned on the TV, and I started crying, and we're talking about, because once you realize it was an attack, and I said, Jen, obviously I'm going to go re-enlist next week when I get back into town, and she paused for a minute. I'm like, Jen, I'm trained. I know what to do. I can go serve, and we need this right now. And she paused and she said something that was genius. And so if she watches this, I'm going to give her credit. But she said, Eric, there is a younger, better you that can go do that. You can do so much as a civilian. And it just made so much sense to me. I wasn't old at the time or anything like that, but the idea that you can still do things without pulling a trigger, right? Or without putting on camis and jumping out of a plane or, setting up a bomb or doing whatever is so powerful. And so, that just not behind a keyboard, but you can volunteer, you can donate, you can influence. There's so many things that you can do.
So that light a fire under you a little bit where you're like, okay, if I'm not going to re-enlist, then I have to serve in a different capacity.
Different capacity, because that's what fills me up. I mean, that just on a selfish level, I get a lot out of serving. So that's what's part of the driver, to be honest with you. But it just her timing and saying that and the way she articulated it to me, I didn't go back and sign up. And it made a lot of sense that I could. And it was the humility of saying, you know what, I'm not as badass as I'm pretending right now. There is a younger, better me. Like, I could do other things. So thank you for saying that.
It's genius. It's genius.
It works. So there you go.
So how long were you in for then?
It was a total of 6 years between everything. And it was one of those, I had kind of a unique experience because I was put into a program called the Category P program, which was actually, it doesn't exist anymore, but it was a program where they were taking high school kids and running them through really intense drilling before you went to boot camp. So I actually went and served my entire senior year with the reservists up in Portland. So I was dressed in camis and I was doing the same drills as them, and I was learning my general orders, and I was doing the PT, and I was learning the history, and I was going to the ranges and I was serving my senior year, and I even got flown down to
almost like ROTC in a
for
way.
High school, kind of.
Yeah,
it really was. It was a unique, cool thing that I got invited to do and qualified for it, however you want to say. And so I actually was flown down to MCRD, the Marine Corps Recruit Depot, a couple times even before I went to boot camp. So I had seen it, and I had a huge edge. So when I showed up, I was ready. Like I knew everything. My PFD was a 300 PFD. Like I was ready to rock and roll. And so I had a big edge over everybody else. And they had a little, the little camera crew and filmed some things, like getting my head shaved and all that kind of stuff. That it's cool that I have all those things because you don't get that all the time. And so I was really kind of giving an edge up, and so that kind of helped me get my groove on, for that. So
have you seen the movie? Is it 1517 to Paris?
No.
Oh, it's the new one about the Paris attacks, correct?
Yeah,
I haven't seen it.
It was where there was a terrorist on a train in Paris, and there were.
Tell me that's not a Liam Neeson movie.
No,
Okay.
it's a real story.
Okay,
it's an amazing movie.
Yeah,
and I don't know why it didn't get much more.
Oh, I know the story though.
But the actors
Oh,
in
I
the
do
movie
know the
were the
story.
guys that were on the train.
Okay, I have not seen it yet, but I have heard about this now. You said, yeah.
So I thought it was going to be all about the train, but that was only
wow.
about 10 minutes of the movie.
Wow.
The first 3/4 of the movie are these kids going through. Two of them I think two of them were in the military, different branches, and it was really interesting to see one kid go into the military with a goal of being something cool, like a paratrooper or something, and then it was his vision came back not good enough, and he didn't get it, and so he didn't make the career he wanted, and he was in a lower rank or whatever it is, lower program. But it was really interesting to see that part of the military, because of course we live here in Portland.
Yeah.
F-15s fly over our
Right.
heads every day. So
Yep.
of course, growing up, Top Gun and all that. we all
Oh,
wanted to
Top
be
Gun,
pilots.
absolutely.
But how many people
Yep.
join the military or get recruited in the military?
Yeah.
And they actually get to fly those jets. So it was really interesting to see that. But then all their training and all the drills. And then as soon as the guy came out of the bathroom with AK-47, they went right into action.
It's amazing.
It is an amazing movie. Highly recommend it. Great 4th of July movie.
Yeah.
For sure.
I feel like Clint Eastwood might have directed that.
He did direct it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think the military, as for a young man, for me, it really helped me grow up a little bit faster than I would have if I just would have gone to college. You know, helped me kind of earn some stripes, both figurative and literally, about responsibility and being accountable.
Well,
some of those things. So yeah,
In your YouTube videos, you're pretty open about your childhood and your dad.
yeah, yeah.
And I don't know how close you were with your stepdad, but did the military kind of serve that void a little bit? Is that, I mean, or is that cliche?
Wow. I want to give you a good answer here. No. No, but what I do think is that it gave me, maybe in some weird way, if I'm going to go down a Freud path or something like that, but the bonding that you have is unlike anything else, right? So, you know, that kind of bonding, you know, I think that people that play a high level sports probably experience some of that, you know, amongst teammates. You know, obviously maybe in some marriages, but it's a really intense bonding that you have, you know, when you're spending 24 hours a day with the same group of guys, and you know that you're there for business, and the business isn't good sometimes. That's an intense bond, even at a young age, you know, even as a teenager, 19, 20, 21 years old. So I think I do miss that about the military, and I think that's one thing that a lot of guys, when they get out, that's one thing that they really struggle with, is not having that same intense sort of bonding amongst their other peers, their civilian peers, both in the workplace and so on. So everything seems a little, to the guys I've talked to, their words to me are something like, it seems more superficial. So it's a little depressing that all of the relationships you have day in and day out are more superficial than you were hoping they were going to be. So,
Well, I
wonder what Jordan Peterson's opinion on that.
who knows?
Sorry,
Yeah.
I wish I knew him. I could ask.
I mean, going through collegiate athletics.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
As soon as I got done, there was a huge void.
Right.
Just that daily grind with people going through the same process as
That's right.
you.
And you got each other's back, and you're on the same team, like literally on the same team, but you're literally preparing for battle in a cliche way, athletics against the other team, and you know, it's very powerful, especially for a man. You know, that you have that level of, like, you know, intensity.
That's why they call it being a weekend warrior now.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
So were there a lot of lessons and discipline learned in the military that carried over into real estate and starting off in your new career?
I learned a lot about sales, actually. I learned a lot about leadership, because I was fortunate in the few things I did. I had some leadership billets and some leadership roles, and so I'm not the biggest guys of guys. So I was, you know, I think when you lead, especially in the military, you can lead by fear, you can lead by intimidation, you can lead through respect. And so because I wasn't bigger than anybody else, I wasn't more physically imposing, that I was able to find ways to lead through leadership, and I really prided myself on trying to set an example. I was actually talking to my son about this the other day, because he's wanting to become a basketball player, and he's a little dude, and you know, I'm so proud of him, what he's doing now, and he's 11, and so we've talked a lot about how, you know, as a littler player, it's all heart, it's all hustle. You got to out-sweat, out-work, out-hustle, and you don't have the advantages of being
John
7 foot tall.
Yeah.
So we study the people that have been smaller and had huge success, and how did they do that. And so with him, I was talking about, because sometimes in these camps, he's now being the example. So he does the example for the drill for everybody else, and then he does the drill. And I was telling him how proud I am, because I remember, like, even in boot camp,
It's a big leadership
it's
role.
a big leadership little role, and it's cool. And so we were kind of sharing some stories about that. And in boot camp, because I was the guide, which is kind of the leader of the platoon at the time. You know, when anybody was disciplined, whether or not they deserved it, right? But whenever they were thrashed over on the side, I would leave what I was doing, and I'd go get thrashed with them. You know, so I didn't just do my PT I did every push-up everybody else did. I did every sit-up everybody else did. Every leg flutter kick everybody else did. Every rope climb everybody else did.
And where people are like, who is this guy? What is he?
I was just trying, you know, I was like, hey, if you're going to do it, I'm going to do it with you, because maybe the reason why you got in trouble was because I didn't provide the right, you know, leadership to where you
Oh, because you were in that scenario. You were
I was in
leadership role.
I was leadership role, so the drill instructor picked on them. I was like, hey, I'm going to get thrashed too. I'll go get thrashed with you. And so I was talking with him about that. Or even sometimes we do a run. You have the whole platoon of 60 guys or whatever. Run, and I would carry the flag, and of course some guys would get tired and you start to leg back, and I was like, okay, let me see if I could find enough motivation in myself and body myself where I could do a lap around the platoon holding the flag, right? So I was running behind each guy and then up and around in front, and I'm not the only guy. Lots of people do that, but seeing how powerful that was, example, I'm like, shit, hopefully I can do that, right? So that kind of, you know, setting an example, I think that's something Jordan would agree with. I think that any leader wants to have that example. So leadership from example is way more powerful than from an ivory tower. power or from fear or intimidation or physically imposing or louder voice or whatever it is. So.
Well, it goes back to your example of communication and being specific, right? Is you just said, well, maybe if I go through the same punishment, maybe I'll realize that I was the one that led you down that path.
And it gets perspective.
Yeah.
You know, you get perspective, and that's a powerful leadership tool, perspective. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, here we go. I got 2 questions.
Let's do it. Whatever you got.
I'm going to change it up a little bit because it's our 4th of July special. Normally I would ask, what about being successful is important to you? But really what I want to hear is, what does the American flag mean to you? Mm-hmm. And you've obviously taken to YouTube to express some of that, and people can look by going to
if you
Eric
just
Post
Google
American.
it, yeah.
But why is that? Why is that so important to you? What does that American flag mean to you and your freedom mean to you?
Yeah, and to be clear, I do everything on Facebook. I don't do anything on YouTube. Just to be clear.
Well, you're on there.
Yeah, some people steal my stuff and put it on YouTube.
You should monetize
That's not me.
it.
Yeah, I know. I don't monetize my page at all. So what it means to me is what it means to everybody. But ultimately, it's and I've said this in the past. So as one of the things I have from my grandfather is his flag, his folded flag from his funeral. And so that flag to me is my grandfather.
When did he serve?
He served in World War II.
Wow.
And so that flag is my grandfather. That flag to a legal immigrant, it represents opportunity. That flag to
a legal immigrant. I just want to make sure.
I said that, yeah.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah. Well, to anybody maybe that wants to be, even if they're illegal. But I didn't mean to polarize in that way. But
that's okay. We're polarizing today.
Yeah, let's do that. But to me, the flag represents the positive side of the U.S. of America, because that's what we're striving towards. With recognizing all of the imperfections, and you have a divide, you have a chasm like we do now. If anybody's going to make progress to some sort of unification or some sort of unifying thought idea that can actually not just create change but make progress, then there has to be at least a symbol, a platform that we can all agree on to have any discussion at all. And so for my just simple idea was if just a simple thing like a flag that can say, you know what, we both agree we want the best for you, for me, for him, for her, for everybody else here. If that's true, then underneath this banner that we've given ourselves gives us the ability to have discourse, gives us the ability to have protest. But why should we have that thing be burned and torn and everything else when that represents our ability to have these voices heard? And so, yes, like a lot of it, like the idea of free speech is incredibly powerful, and that's the thing I fought for. So I've actually grown up a lot in my thought that I don't want to make it illegal to burn the flag. I don't want to make it illegal, actually, for the NFL players to kneel. I want to make it the country where people don't want to.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I've said that. And so that kind of thought, I think, is way more powerful than by using force to say we're going to give you a fine, if you kneel, or we're going to make it illegal and arrest you if you burn the flag. Or as painful as it is to the spouse of a fallen soldier that they see the flag being burned, sure, it's easy to say, let's make it illegal, let's fine them, But why don't we let's go one level deeper and say, okay, there's something happening that makes them want to burn the flag. But let's just say they're not just causing trouble and they just don't want to be, on the news or whatever. But let's say they're
being honest. They're being honest about.
They have pain, right? Yeah. They're feeling pain for some reason. If I wish that the people that have a legitimate concern, a legitimate pain, a legitimate thing that they're so passionate about, that they would pause for half a second and say, okay, how can I actually voice this opinion so the people that need to hear me, that don't agree with me, would listen to me? Because if I choose to burn the flag, there's millions of people that just will turn them off instantly, will never hear what they have to say. So just being intelligent with their way of choosing to protest would go on both sides, right?
Yeah, it would probably get their point or their agenda across.
What if one of them said, like a protest in Portland, because we're seen to be the capital of protesting here. What if somebody stood up with the flag and said, you know what, last year I would have burned this. I would have burned this flag. But today, I'm going to stand here with pride because I know it gives me the power to be here and explain to you what's wrong, what my version of what is wrong is. People would turn their head and go, like, cool, let's give this guy some time.
Without their face being covered by a black mask.
Covered, all that other bullshit. It drives me crazy. But I mean, listen, and I'm just making this up now, but I think the power of that. Maybe the media wouldn't pick it up. I don't know, because they certainly love to show their flags. But the idea, like true power. Like MLK didn't throw bricks. You know what I mean? He was silent in his protests, right? And, or burn things. And so I think the idea of that is so much just deeper.
There's so much corruption in those protests. And it's really coming out now where there's people that are paid to go protest.
They are. Right? They are.
And I think it was, I don't know if it was MLK, but somebody said, how do you, if somebody's protesting and you want peacefully and you want to stop them, then hire somebody to go make it violent.
Yeah.
Right.
It's unfortunate. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's real popular to counter protest and all this stuff. And I try and stay out of the drama of it, but just at the level where there's a true issue. There's something that's really wrong. And I say this all the time, that when we allow the emotions to go high, we don't have the right intelligence to find the real solution because we're so emotional about it. And so finding a way, some sort of way to at least dial it back for the greater good of actually finding a solution. It doesn't feel good. Like, it feels real good to get pissed. It feels real good to flex your chest. It feels real good to yell and scream and call names. But none of that does. People say, no, that's wrong. It brings attention to it. I'm like, not all attention is good attention. It can galvanize. And then the people that may have been able to support you or actually help you take this thing across the finish line are galvanized against you for that. And so, and flag burning is just one example. And the reason why I shot that video originally, it was just what I was thinking about were the millions of people that didn't have a voice, that the only voices were heard were the pissed off voices burning the flags. And all these people were like, whoa.
For the people that haven't seen the video, you're at Multnomah Cemetery.
Willamette National Cemetery.
Willamette.
Yeah.
And those people definitely didn't have a voice.
They didn't, and that's literally, it choked me up because I'm looking at the grave sites and the Medal of Honor winners. I'm thinking about, and I didn't want to speak. I even said it. I didn't even say I was a veteran at the time. I didn't say anything about it being a Marine. I literally did that intentionally because I didn't want to have that platform. I was just American out here. And let's think about this. The media placed the Marine thing. The media placed the veteran thing on me. And it wasn't even my fault. So I wasn't trying to take that platform. Whether or not they made it more powerful or whatever, that's on them. That wasn't my idea. But, and even like Herman Cain and all these guys picked it up. It was like, what if anybody wants to burn the flag has to talk to this big Marine first? I'm like, dude, I'm not even that big. But they spin this
tribal mentality, right?
I'm like, guys, that's not what I was trying to do. I was trying to say, okay, let's have a little respect first if you really care about it. And give another voice, out there. And so that's the reason why I did it, and it's what I continue to try to do. And I've messed up a lot, and I'll say something like, oh, that's not what I meant. It got taken the wrong way or whatever. But the intention, it goes back to that saying about having the right intention. I've tried to have the right intention of respect and listening like I'm wrong and being human about it, very human about it. But it's been a fascinating journey for sure, because I've given the gift of seeing all these ways of thinking I would have never had before. So,
and hearing your story and your passion for the American flag and your videos and meeting a lot of people that we've met on this podcast, I'm going into the 4th of July with a different perspective. 4th of July is my favorite holiday by far.
I got my socks on, baby.
I know. We'll have to get a picture. We'll put it on the website.
One of the coolest sayings that came out of that, not one, I mean, there's so many cool things. We could talk about a couple of them, but one of them, I did an interview for a magazine, and the interview that was calling me, he was for flag burning. Like that's what he was for. And so the angle.
Who is he? Who is he with?
I don't want to mention. He's a freelance writer, but it was for a specific publication.
Gotcha.
And I actually turned down a whole bunch of interviews because they were so far to one side of the spectrum that's not what I was about. And I was like, nope, I'm not. You can't use me for that. That's an agenda. That's not a story. That's an agenda. So I was trying to, the best I can navigate that. I'm learning. But this guy, we had a long talk in an interview, and then we talked for another 40 minutes afterwards. And he goes, I tell you what, he goes, the way we just talked about it now, he goes, I will never burn another flag. He goes, every protest that I will go to, I will try and talk to the people in such a way that we just had a conversation that I'll ask them through this lens of a different way of protesting. And so to me,
did he publish the article that way?
One of the articles, it is published now. I think he did a fantastic job of not spinning it the way I think he would have had we not had that conversation.
Wow,
that's cool.
Yeah, that was cool.
And so, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure you realize this, but it seems like you've got this gift or this skill of being very opinionated and very passionate, and then getting somebody to understand that. Is that something you've had to work on, or it comes natural?
I've studied a lot, so I have a video about how I really had a low point. I lost a few bucks and all this thing, and so I spent, now it's been a good 10 years trying to understand human nature, trying to understand high performance, trying to understand psychology, books, seminars, tapes, classes, you name it, webinars, whatever. And so I'd have to say some of it maybe is natural. I don't even know. I can't take this compliment very well. I'm fucking this all up.
Right.
But my point is, some of it is because I've tried to understand the way people think, and because I care enough about the other person.
Have you had a lot of failed attempts where you find yourself in a conversation where you just can't get this person to understand where you're coming from?
No, because my agenda isn't for them to understand where I'm coming from, right? And because that's not what's important to me. What's important is the truth. Like I said earlier, it's not about me being right. It's the truth. And I don't misinterpret my opinion as the truth. And I think that happens a lot. People misunderstand their opinions that they have on a topic as being the truth. They label it as my truth. Well, my truth is this. I'm like, bullshit. There is just the truth. It's not my truth or your truth. It's the truth. So I don't
It's a very Jordan Peterson thing to say.
It probably is, actually. And so that's why I just don't care about that. I'm saying my perspective. When I have an opinion, it's in search of the right answer. It's in search of the solution. So I don't have to be right at the end of the conversation. I truly don't. There are some things that is non-negotiable for me. Child abuse, some of those things are non-negotiable. But in general, especially about politics, I'm more in search of the truth than being right. So that's why I don't worry about it. I'm not trying to convince everybody.
So, real quick question. Talking about books, seminars, you had African American come up to you, F you and your white privilege.
Yeah.
Did he? People, if you haven't seen the video, search for the video. Listen
that one was
to
controversial.
It.
No, I mean,
did you get a lot of kickback on that one?
My question is, did he follow back up with you?
One time.
Because that was to me, the proof was going to be in the pudding if he really listened to you.
That was crazy. So I had an interaction, and so at the time I was driving a nice car. I was driving my R8, and I pulled up to the bank, and this guy walked by, and he said, "F you and your white privilege." And what people don't understand is I really go through the day. I have a lot of crazy interactions with people, like really intense, cool conversations. I'm open, like constantly to the cashier, to the waitress, the stewardess, like all the time. So I have a lot of really intense, cool things I find out about people all the time. So this happening to me didn't seem like I wasn't mad. I wasn't pissed, confrontational. Literally in my mind, I'm like, dude, this guy's hurting. Like something's happened where that made sense for him to say that to me. He doesn't know me. He doesn't know anything about me, my story, anything else. And
so he's just walking, in the parking lot.
Yeah,
said, screw you for your fancy car and your white privilege.
Exactly. It was out of jealousy, or he's having a bad day or whatever. So my idea was like, dude, let me just go talk to him to maybe prove I'm not who he thinks I am. And to me, it wasn't about black and white or white privilege. Even that's just started the conversation. It wasn't about that at all, period. Mm-hmm. It was simply just two guys who probably have more in common than seemingly looks like on the outside, right? So when I walked up to him, I was like, man, I know in my mind something's painful. So I was like, there's a technique called pattern interrupt, right? So it's truly a technique where you interrupt their pattern, their bullshit story they're saying over and over and over in such a way. So I was trying to, that's a technique I was trying to use. And it worked. And we were able to have a really cool conversation where at the end of it, we ended up hugging, right? And so it was just this way of connecting with somebody that as a result of pain on both sides, him and I both have had similar pains in our life about dads and everything else, we connected. And I think that's freaking amazing, because two people that maybe had never met, or like it would have been easier if he said, no, fuck you back, right? And then walk into the bank and do my thing. But I don't know. I don't get anything about it just being confrontational and just moving on.
Because you kind of got him to understand that it's not about race. We all come from different backgrounds. And a lot of people are misserved by having this new white privilege thing, where just because they're white, they have their successes because of their race.
Yeah, and to me, actually different outside of even the race thing, there's another deeper problem, if I'm going to label it, amongst right now, just in the country, and that's a sense of entitlement, just an intensive entitlement on any level. And so the sense of entitlement that I sensed out of him was true. You know, that he was owed something and something. It wasn't black or white. It wasn't what, ultimately at the end of the day. Truly wasn't. And so when I was talking about where he gets his money, where I was talking about, you know, sense of responsibility for his kids, when I was talking about those things I talked about in the video, I was just simply trying to remove the sense of entitlement and empower him that he's not a victim. That's all I was trying to do. Like a sense of empowerment instead of entitlement is a huge change, a game changer. And so that's all I was trying to do, is just feel a sense of empowerment that the circumstance he thought he was in, he might actually have the ability, because we're all capable of doing more than we give ourselves credit for. And I was trying to find a way to tell him that.
Well, and he wanted a management position. And
That's
you
right,
asked him point blank, like, what's your management experience? Like, why do you deserve a management position?
A lot of people want management positions. And, okay, just, buddy, tell me the things you've put in place in your life to deserve the management position.
Yep.
You know, like, great, we all want something, but wanting something and actually doing something about it are two totally different things. So I just didn't want to lie to him. I didn't want to be like, yeah, man, you can get that, go for it. And so I didn't want to lie to him anymore, or have him hear the same lies, like, you deserve it, man. You know, you should have got that last job. And it's the same bullshit things that the circle of friends were probably telling you. You know, it's true.
Or here's
you
the
know,
reasons why you don't have it.
Here's the reason why. Yeah, I was like, well, tell me, like, what are the things that you've done? Like, just lay that out for me. And it's like, good point, you know?
Yeah. So when he followed back up with you, how did it go? Like, what did he follow back up with you?
It was pretty quick. It was about the books, because I said, man, I'm not going to give you money. You know, I'm not going to give you a job. That's not what this is about. But if you want a few ideas of some things to read that might help you put it in the right path, let me know sometime. Here's my phone number. And that's really all it was. And so, you know, when you have that kind of interaction, you can only do so much for other people that have learned. So I was like, hey, I'll give them something. If you did something about it, I'll do what I can. That's what it was about.
So you said you got a lot of heat for that video. I thought it was a very inspirational video.
Well, because people want to make an agenda about white and black. They want to make it about white privilege. It was literally just the reason to have a conversation was his comment. The rest of it was not about it.
So how do you handle because we talked about polarizing a lot before the show and during the show.
Sure.
So how do you handle that when you start getting heat?
Well, here's the thing, like that one video between Mike Cernovich taking it on my page, I see on YouTube, it's over 100 million views, right? So you have over 100 million people looking at something. Of course, you're going to get a lot of misinterpretation of what actually happened. And to be fair, my video was just a one-sided account of the affair, right? It wasn't the conversation.
And it was in the heat of the moment. It's not like you thought about it, wrote out.
I just drove home. I'm like, dude, here's what happened, and shot it. So it wasn't a script or anything. So, you know, I can get how somebody could misinterpret it, or I wasn't being condescending, but I can get how if you watch the video, it could come off that way. I get it. That's not what it was. That's not what in reality it was. So more than not, it was received fine. But there is a certain part of the population that wants to make trouble about any word, and especially white privilege at the time was huge. It's now. So they were misunderstanding the actual conversation. That's okay, man. That's okay. I quickly had to get some thick skin, because 2 years ago, criticism, like, I want people to like me. I want people to actually understand what I'm about. And so getting thick skin has had to happen a little quick.
Well, and then you did a video. You shot a video in like March of 17. I saw it.
Okay.
That you talked about the negative publicity and the haters, and that you just basically said, I have to go forward with my beliefs and my mission here, and put those people aside and not worry about the haters, pretty much.
Well, a thing that I learned is because I had the misunderstanding that every opinion mattered, and they don't. There are some negative, nasty people out there that just have an opinion that shouldn't matter to you. And it's not, I'm not saying they're a bad, like, human being, but their opinion is bad. And it's because it's negative, it's not just, it's not true. People lie, people cheat, people steal, people kill, people murder. Like, there are bad actions and opinions. And so I've had to, like, actually say, dude, I got to be more, I can't be so naive.
So do you engage those at all?
Some of them. And actually the ones that I engaged were the ones where it was just brutal and it was so off base. I would click the profile. And if on the profile I saw that dude, it looks like a normal person there. They got a dog and a girlfriend and, you know, a job and all this kind of stuff. I would message them. I'm like, and I would copy and paste their comment. And I would say, hey, this is what you said. This is who I think you might be. Which one are you? Right? And 9.5 times out of 10, it was like, you know, you're right. I that was a little out of line. I didn't get it. And we'd have a little quick interaction. It was all good.
Wow.
But if I would click on the comment and it was just rhetoric after, hate post after fake, I could tell it was a fake profile or whatever. I was just whatever. But the ones where I was like, man, there seems to be a really big disconnect, but probably with who they are and this, because people have the fake sense that they're anonymous when they post something. Holy shit, no, click your name and you can see everything about you, where you work and all this kind of stuff. And it doesn't register with everybody. So
do you think that there's a wave of rationality that coming out? Because we listen to a lot of Joe Rogan. You listen to a lot of these media figures that are kind of in our age bracket, and you're starting to see some of the insanity kind of go away, and people not wanting to be part of identity, not wanting to call themselves one political party or the other, or want to actually take each topic on face value and form their own opinion. Do you kind of see what you're talking about when you're responding to these people?
I think there's fatigue. Yeah, people get fatigue in general, so you get fatigue with anything, and so I think they had some fatigue just beating their head against the wall. And the topic going back here, it doesn't really matter. I don't know what number that was on there, but pursue what's meaningful, like number 7. And so all of a sudden they realize, does this really freaking matter? I got 2 kids, I have bigger purposes in life, I want to try whatever their thing is. I think some people are starting to realize that what they were actually fighting for was they were told to fight for it. It wasn't their choice. They were being told. They were being incited.
I'm gonna make a leap here.
Okay.
See if I can come up with an analogy.
Let's do it.
So, growing up, you had a few radio stations.
Okay.
Right. Z100, the rock station, the country station.
Sure.
So really, your music choices were dependent on what the radio was telling you to listen
to. Yeah.
And then Napster came along and screwed everything up, and then now you have Spotify and Pandora. And I'm a huge music fan. And I've discovered more awesome new music in the last 3 or 4 years than I have when I was in my teens.
Yeah,
and I'm absolutely loving it because I'm discovering unbelievable bands that nobody else really listens to. It's not on the radio, but they've become part of my playlist. And I don't think that would have happened if I'm stuck to listening to 3 radio stations.
Absolutely not.
And I really think that is happening in politics, in a lot of these topics, controversial topics like Black Lives Matter, white privilege, and Donald Trump. Because now we have YouTube, where anybody that has a phone can give their opinion or start a podcast. And so you're starting to get exposure to all these people that aren't on the Fox News and the CNN. Jordan Peterson's a great example. If it wasn't for podcasts, I would have never discovered Jordan Peterson or a lot of these other people. So do you kind of think that hopefully that's kind of the saving grace?
Actually, I'm not normally the pessimist, but I am a little bit with social media, because the algorithms behind the social media, they feed you what they think you want to see. And so unless the person's intentional about actually going out looking channels, like especially Facebook's, I think, the worst violator, with this one problem, that the algorithm is feeding them what their friends are looking at, what you're looking at. So it's actually taking away the other side of the argument so many times. So in certain respects, I actually think it's getting a little bit worse because of that.
See, and that's opposite with music. My favorite feature on Spotify is You Might Also Like.
I know.
Right.
And I love that too. But they're even taking away the trending feature. Facebook took away the trending feature, right? So you don't get to see what's trending out there. You just get to see what they give you. And so I think it's actually getting worse with that. Music's another story, but I think with these sorts of topics, especially the controversial ones, most social media is probably even making it worse.
So it's forcing you into the tribe mentality.
It's forcing you into the tribe mentality. And so I've actually intentionally go and follow pages I know I never agree with, but it's so important, because when I see something on that page that's so crazy, in my opinion, off base, I'm like, oh my God, okay, that's why they're so pissed, because what they see on this other side seems so crazy off base. So I have empathy for it. I'm like, I get it, right? We're all being fed this bullshit. So, yeah, I think actually with news, politics, and things, it's actually worse now. I don't have any basis for that. It's just my opinion.
If it weren't for friends seeing pictures of kids, family members, business, kind of like if you're not on social media, it's a little bit tougher to do business these days. Yeah. And I've said all the time, if it weren't for those couple of things, I would love to just delete. Yeah. So
well, a lot of people are after the whole privacy issue with Facebook, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And even on my public page, because it's one of those things that I don't monetize it. It's just it's up there, and I try and post to it. But I can watch the metrics on it, right? And I could see when they made the change of distribution based on my general leaning politic view, and it was a little disheartening. Now what's even worse is actually people are being removed from my page without them wanting to be. And that's a bummer. That's just, it's really too bad. And so, I don't know, 70-some thousand people or whatever. And so there's a couple people I know that aren't anymore. I called and said, hey, what's up? And they go, no, I didn't, absolutely not. Anyways, it's part of it. But I don't bitch about it or complain about it because I'm not entitled to this platform. This is not my company. This is a private company. They can do with it as they want.
Somebody else can come and create a different platform, right?
Yep. And so since I'm using it, I am subject to their thing. So I'm not protesting, or anything like that. It is what it is. I'll use it how I want to use it, and that's it.
Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah. What else do we want to do?
So you say you hunt a little bit. Ryan and I love talking about hunting. We're in a pretty badass museum.
Yeah.
What do you think of this place? And has outdoors always been a part of your life? And kind of what do you get out of that?
Well, I was just talking to somebody the other day about how the outdoors for me is my sanctuary. Like being in the woods is where I just feel at home because I'm, you can be disconnected and you can just pause for half a second. So yeah, it's my saving grace. But I started hunting actually as a result of my wife's grandfather. And he had 4 daughters, and he wanted a son to hunt. He'd hunted forever. So he took me hunting. And actually, he took me rifle hunting, archery hunting. And rifle hunting, I actually didn't enjoy it that much. For some reason, I didn't have the same challenge or connection to it. I was just going there to hang out with him. There's actually quite a few times I didn't even pull the trigger at an animal because I was like, whatever. It just didn't feel right, but I love the sport and all that stuff. But archery hunting, I loved. And so I still go, and but that to me is just a real deep connection with nature. It's a real deep connection with the woods, and I personally only take a shot where I know, like I don't shoot at 70 yards personally. I don't shoot through a tree branch personally. Like I'm very cautious about it, and I only shoot what I'm going to eat personally. But I'm sitting in this is pretty spectacular museum, and it's a very polarizing museum, right? As you look around, we had to talk about this, but I find the beauty of somebody appreciating nature. I can tell he's taken a lot of care in this, and
conservation. I mean, he's one of the biggest conservationists I've ever met. We've raised millions of dollars in here for wildlife conservation.
I think that's something actually that's misunderstood of how important actually hunting is to the whole thing. To all of it, conservation, protection, species protection, all those things, management. So a good, responsible hunter is doing a very good thing.
Yeah.
For the
So
environment.
how would you respond if I saw you in a parking lot and I came up to you and I said, how could a hunter be closer to nature by hunting?
Well, so the first elk I killed, I cried. Like, I don't think you can get closer to nature than that because I had such appreciation for the actual animal. But I also knew every single part of the animal was going to get, and it would have been used if it died naturally.
Yep.
It would have been used. It's just being used in another way. And I definitely had this deep appreciation for the animal and a connection to nature, an appreciation for everything it took to harvest an animal and everything that animal did for the environment.
Did you feel like in tune in a kind of a hippy dippy way with nature when you killed your first elk?
I did. I really did. And I don't care. Make fun of me if you want, but I did because it's true. Like I really appreciated everything that was going into that particular moment. And it wasn't the thrill of it or anything else. It was the appreciation of everything that was happening. So I think most hunters I know feel connected to nature. I can't guarantee all hunters are like that. I know there's bad hunters out there. I know there's people that do bad stuff in the woods.
Because there's a weird spiritual thing about it.
You agree with me?
I felt it once. Really, I had, like you, I didn't grow up hunting and fishing.
Yeah, me either. Yeah.
But my best friend's dad took me pheasant hunting, and it was all downhill from there.
Yeah, there you go.
But about 5 or 6 years ago, it was September. I was up on Mount St. Helens, and I was doing an evening fish, fly fishing for trout. And I had just started tying my own flies and drank the Kool-Aid, and I was going down this really nerdy path of tying your own flies. And I tied a big yellow hexagenia fly with feathers from a rooster that I shot over a dog I trained.
Yeah, there you go.
And then I caught this little 14-inch rainbow trout, and I was the only one on the lake. It was sprinkling. There was elks bugling in the background. There was an osprey and a bald eagle fighting.
Yeah.
And it just clicked.
Yeah.
And I felt that hippie. It's hard to describe, but that is close to nature, right?
Yep.
Where you're tricking a fish with feathers from a bird you shot,
Yeah,
for a dog you train, and it all hits at once. It's like the synergy between everything you're doing. It clicked for me. And in a weird way, I think, and I want to get your opinion on this, hunting and fishing, doing this podcast, doing things outside of your business that require similar skills, there becomes a synergy there too, where sometimes like that's a great example, or killing your first elk and doing all the preparation. There's so many lessons and so many skills it takes to do that also you utilize in your business. Do you find a connection there? Do you think that's important?
Yeah, I haven't really thought about it. I think everything that you do in your life, another quote, Jim Rohn, success comes from doing ordinary things extraordinarily well. And that concept applies to hunting, it applies to business. And so, especially with archery hunting, you can't just go out and just fake it. If you're going to be successful, especially with elk, you have to really know how, where,
it's a lifestyle.
What you interact, with the animals. You got to get close. It's a lot of work. And so the success only comes when you do all the little things extraordinarily well, but the ordinary things. And that quote, it really plays off. So things like that help me, achieve the things I want to in different things, sure, physically or hunting or business or parenting or whatever else. Yeah, but yeah, there's got to be an alignment. And I think, another quote, but you do anything as you do everything, so somebody that has, that kind of mentality that I'm going to do, everything, like I'll do anything is pretty powerful. So if you have an appreciation for hunting, you probably have an appreciation for serving your customer. You probably have an appreciation for your relationship with your children. You probably have an appreciation for health and wellness. You probably, what I mean? You have a sense of appreciation or gratitude for one thing, it carries over. And that serves you really well. Yeah.
Yeah. And it kind of goes right back full circle to that Charles Krauthammer wrote a quote where he is dying knowing that he lived the life he intended.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm jealous in a way. I hope that I can get there someday when I'm at that point in my life.
Getting there, man.
It's like, you know what?
Give yourself some credit.
I've done exactly what I wanted to do. Well, happy 4th of July.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service.
Absolutely.
Thanks for sharing, what the 4th of July and what the American flag means to you. If this is your first episode of our podcast, hit up Got Your Six Fishing. It was last year's, I think it was number 5 or 6.
Yeah, something like that.
If you want to make some donations this 4th of July, I don't know if you have any nonprofits you want to push, but Got Your Six Fishing, he does an amazing service where he takes veterans out fishing for free. So Got Your Six Fishing, you can donate right on his page. But listen to the podcast number 20, Claudia and Augustine Belladine, if you want to know what freedom means to somebody that escaped communism. But I hope we can keep this trend going and talking about our freedom.
It's great.
And kind of exploring that. So,
yeah, 4th of July. Let's do this.
Eric, it was great to get to know you on this podcast.
Yeah, you
Thanks.
guys too.
You're more than welcome. Anytime you want to come on, I think we could go a lot longer. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, happy 4th, everyone.
Cheers,
All
guys.
right, take care.